Rise, fall.
Welcome back to our podcast. Okay, let's get into it. Today, we're trying to do something, well, pretty epic.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just distilling the entire 3,000-year story of ancient Egypt. This isn't just pharaohs and sand. We're talking 31 dynasties, a civilization that lasted longer than almost any other.
And we've got a huge stack of sources here, everything from ancient texts to modern archaeology.
Right. Our mission is to basically shortcut you to the most fascinating insights. But to really set the stage, I think we need to jump forward in time, way forward.
To around 1200 AD.
Exactly. Egypt's great age is long, long over. And we're looking at it through the eyes of a medieval Arab scholar, Abd al-Latif al-Baghdadi.
And what's so fascinating is his perspective. It's this mix of radical scale and just profound mystery. He gets to Giza and is just floored by the pyramid.
He said your sight would just falter trying to take it all in.
Yeah, that's the phrase he used. But it wasn't just the size, it was the silence of it all.
And the writing. He noted the hieroglyphs were completely unreadable by his time. The knowledge was just gone.
Utterly gone. He wrote, and this is just incredible, "In the entire land of Egypt, I have never found a single person who so much as claimed to have heard of anyone who knew how to read them."
Wow. So the culture had forgotten its own history.
Completely. And he goes to the Sphinx, which is buried up to its neck in sand, and the locals call it Old Father Dread. But he sees something else.
What did he see?
He described its face as handsome, with a kind of elegance, and as if a smile were playing across features.
So that's our mission today. We are going to unpack the history of the civilization that built things so enduring that, as al-Baghdadi said, time itself has had to endure the era of the pyramids.
And to do that, you have to start with the geography. You have to start with the Nile.
The lifeblood.
Absolutely. We're talking 6,800 kilometers. It's either the longest or second longest river on Earth, and it drains a tenth of the entire African continent. Everything came from this river.
And they built their entire worldview around it. This contrast between Kemet, the black land,
Fertile soil, the floodplain, life, the god Horus,
versus Dishret, the red land.
the desert, the scorching, chaotic desert, the domain of the god set. It was literally order versus chaos right there in the landscape.
And that order came from the predictability of the Nile's flood.
Incredible predictability. The monsoon rains in Central Africa would swell the river with such regularity they could time its arrival to the middle of August,
They timed it with a star, right?
with the rising of the star Sirius, and that gave them their entire calendar. 3 seasons: Akhet, the flood; Peret, the growing season; and Shemu, the harvest.
But how reliable could that really be year after year? How did they track it?
They were obsessed with data collection. They built these incredible devices called nilometers.
Nilometers, okay.
Yeah, basically huge stone towers with deep wells, especially at Aswan. They carved measurements right into the stone in Egyptian cubits. This wasn't just for fun, it was state administration.
So they were checking the readings to see if it would be a year of famine or a year of plenty?
Exactly. Or if they needed to build emergency flood defenses. It was their economic forecast.
And you mentioned Aswan. That was a key location, the natural southern border.
It really was. You have this belt of hard granite that creates these rapids, these cataracts. The ancients thought the thundering sound was the Nile bursting out from under the earth.
So for a long time, that was the edge of their world, the narrow gateway to the south.
And that control of the river, that stability, is what allows for the big moment, unification, around 3000 BC.
King Narmer, also known as Menes, in his name. This is where it gets really interesting.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Narmer translates to fighting catfish.
It does, and you have to understand the Nile catfish is this huge nocturnal predator. It can generate a 350-volt electric shock.
So he's basically advertising himself as a shock and awe ruler, wild, powerful, dominant.
Exactly, and that raw power soon becomes monumental ambition. The Old Kingdom, Pharaoh Djoser.
This is where we get the first truly massive stone building in the world.
The Step Pyramid,
Yeah.
62 meters high, designed by this polymath, Imhotep.
Imhotep, the one who comes in peace.
Right. But before we get into the pyramids themselves, we have to clear up that huge myth. They were not built by slaves.
It just doesn't make logistical sense, does it?
Not at all. These were professional artisans and seasonal laborers.
Farmers, mostly.
Exactly. Farmers who were required to work for the state during the flood season when their fields were underwater and there was nothing else to do, and they were paid.
And paid pretty well, from what our sources say. Rations of bread, meat, and beer 3 times a day.
3 times a day. They even organized themselves into teams with names like the Drunkards of Menkar.
That's amazing. But the real challenge wasn't motivation, it was time.
Time was the enemy. The pharaoh had to live long enough to see his pyramid finished, usually within about 30 years.
Which led to some famous failures.
Yeah.
Like the half-built pyramid of Sekhemkhet.
And Sneferu, Khufu's father. He was a master of failure before he became a master builder.
Right, he had the Maidum collapse, where the whole outer casing just peeled off.
A total disaster. And then the famous bent pyramid, they started it too steep, the foundations were unstable, and halfway through they had to change the angle from 53 degrees down to a much safer 43 degrees.
Hence the bent look.
But he finally perfected it with the Red Pyramid, which paved the way for his son, Khufu, and the Great Pyramid of Giza.
And the scale of that is it's almost beyond comprehension. 147 meters high, 2.3 million blocks, 6 million tons.
And the engineering was so specific. For the king's burial chamber, they needed something that could withstand all that weight.
So they use granite.
Dense granite, which is incredibly hard to cut. And they hauled it all the way from Aswan, hundreds of miles.
While the outer casing was this fine white limestone from Tura, so it would shine in the sun.
Exactly. And we know all these details from things like Inspector Merer's work journal, this papyrus that survived, where he just logs his daily work of hauling stone by barge to what he calls the Pool of Khufu.
That incredible central power, that organization, that's exactly what started to fall apart. The Old Kingdom went into decline after the ridiculously long reign of Pepi II.
Over 60 years, you get the classic old king problem. The central authority gets weak, and the provincial governors, the nomarchs, start getting way too powerful.
They basically become hereditary local barons.
Right, and then on top of that political chaos comes an environmental catastrophe.
The 4.2 kill-a-year event. This wasn't just a bad flood season.
No, this was a global climate disaster, a mega drought across the entire region. In Egypt, the Fayum Lake, a huge body of water, dried up completely. The Nile flood just failed for years.
And the human cost was just horrific.
Yeah.
The first intermediate period, a succession crisis with 17 pharaohs in 2 decades.
And we have records like from the nomarch Antifi, who wrote that the famine got so bad everyone had come to eating his children.
It's just unimaginable.
That trauma, the collapse of their entire world, really changed them. When the Middle Kingdom was finally established, the focus wasn't on pyramids anymore.
It shifted to literature.
Exactly, a new kind of reflection. You get what might be the first real piece of literature ever, The Tale of the Shipwrecked Sailor, around 1900 BC, an adventure story.
And we get practical things too, like the papyrus lancing.
Which is just ancient propaganda. A scribe writing to his student about how awful every other job is, the washerman, the potter, to convince him to stick with his studies.
Speaking of things that endured, the veneration of the domestic cat.
Oh, absolutely. The African wild cat was domesticated about 5,000 years ago, and they were essential.
For killing mice in the granaries and snakes.
Practical and religious, they were linked to the goddess Bastet, and the protection they got was, well, extreme. The Greek writer Diodorus of Sicily said that anyone who killed a cat, even by accident, was put to death.
Often by a mob, right on the spot.
That's how vital they were. But that stability didn't last. The Second Intermediate Period saw more chaos, partly triggered by the massive Thera volcano eruption.
Which was, what, 4 times bigger than Krakatoa?
At least. And this environmental stress happened just as a new enemy arrived. The Hyksos. Rulers of foreign lands.
And they had new military tech.
Game-changing tech. The light, fast, horse-drawn chariot with spoked wheels. The Egyptians had never seen anything like it. The Hyksos conquered the north.
Until the Egyptians mastered chariot warfare themselves and kicked them out, which starts the New Kingdom, the Age of Empire, and religious revolution.
Akhenaten, the first recorded monotheist in history. He threw out all the old gods for one deity, the sun disk, Akhenaten.
And to get away from the powerful priests in Thebes, he built a whole new capital city, Akhenaten.
Which was a catastrophic mistake. He held this huge international ceremony to inaugurate the city.
And foreign dignitaries probably brought a plague with them.
That's the theory. A deadly plague sweeps through the new city and up the Nile. To the people, it must have looked like the old gods were punishing them.
his revolution completely collapses. His son, Tutankhamun, the living image of Amun, reverses everything.
And the only reason we know King Tut's name today is just a freak accident of history.
Right. A flash flood sealed the entrance to his tomb, so robbers never found it.
For 3,300 years, pure chance.
The empire peaks under Ramesses II Ozymandias. The great builder ruled for 66 years. His big rival was the Hittite Empire,
Which led to the massive Battle of Kadesh. Ramesses carved these huge reliefs everywhere, claiming it was this glorious victory.
but it was really a bloody stalemate.
A total stalemate, but it did lead to something incredible. The world's first written peace treaty. A replica actually hangs in the UN today.
But the decline of the New Kingdom was brutal. It was part of this wider regional collapse.
The Bronze Age collapse. Trade networks across the entire Mediterranean just fell apart. Ramesses III fought off the Sea Peoples in a huge invasion of the Nile Delta, but the economy was shattered.
Things got so bad, we have a record of the first workers' strike in history.
The king's own tomb builders marching out shouting, "We're hungry, no more clothing, no more oil." The state couldn't even pay its most elite workers.
And it ends with the assassination of Ramesses III, the harem conspiracy.
Yeah, and the mummy shows his throat was slit and his big toe was hacked off, probably as a trophy. It's a gruesome end.
After that, the king's power just evaporates. The real power shifts to the high priests of Amun in Thebes.
They controlled 2/3 of all temple lands and 90% of the ships. They controlled the economy. They were the real power, which just paved the way for foreign conquest.
First, the Nudians, the Kushite 25th dynasty. Their pharaoh, Taharka, actually held off the Assyrians for a while.
He did, but the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal came back. In 663 BC, he sacked Thebes and hauled off unimaginable wealth, including 2 massive obelisks.
And from there, it's a cascade. Persians, then Greeks, until we get to the last independent ruler, Cleopatra.
And here's the final mind-bending timescale, bringing us back to al-Baghdadi.
I love this fact. Cleopatra lived closer in time to us, to the 21st century.
Than she did to the building of the Great Pyramid.
By more than 500 years, that pyramid was already ancient history to her.
And then the final piece of the collapse. The knowledge itself was lost. The ability to read hieroglyphics just faded away.
The last known inscription.
394 AD, the Temple of Philae. A scribe named Nesmetarachim carved a prayer that his words would endure forever at a time when almost no one left could read them.
So after all that, what's the takeaway? The awe remains right. The poet Shelley captured it perfectly with Ozymandias. This shattered statue in the desert with the inscription, "Look on my works, ye mighty, in despair."
Nothing beside remains. But what's so wild is that an anonymous Egyptian author wrote a poem, the Harper's Song, 4,200 years ago.
Long before Shelley.
Millennia before, and he captured the exact same feeling. He looked at the tombs of the old kings and said their mansions are gone, their works are forgotten.
And there's no return for them. They can't tell us what it's like.
Which leaves you with this final thought. If empires fall, if kings turn to dust, what's the lesson from the longest-lasting civilization in history?
It's not about power.
It's not about building pyramids. The Harper Song ends with this advice. Follow your heart and your happiness. Spend your days joyfully and do not grow weary of living. The ultimate lesson from all those ruins is just about the urgency of your own life right now.
Stone by stone, the towers grew tall. Echoes of power in the mighty hall. 1,000 banners in the golden light, marching forward to claim the night. Rise, rise to the heavens, they cry. Empire's born, and the fire in the fire and pride. But the earth it turns, and the winds will call. Rise, rise, then crumble and fall. But